All right, everybody, I'm on the line right now with a man that you're very familiar with his voice. You've been seeing him lately on your TV, Mr. David Penzer, former WCW, TNA, and Impact Ring announcer. And we're going to be seeing a little bit more of you coming up this weekend on Talk N Shop A-Mania. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I just laugh when you say that because it's the stuff that I saw, which was a lot of it, but not all of it, live was hilarious. So I can't imagine once they put it all together. I don't know if you know, I've called it Southpaw Championship Wrestling on acid. And
Yes.
I had Luke Gallows on my podcast this week, sitting ringside, by the way, on all platforms. And he agreed 1,000%. He said that was the best way he's heard to describe it. So I came up with something that stuck. Doesn't happen too often.
There you go. And yeah, your show's on all platforms. You can get it through radioinfluence.com and find your favorite platform. I guess we could start talking about the podcast because you weren't really involved in wrestling for a few years and you're recently getting back into it. One of the ways is the podcast.
Yeah, next week is Lance Storm.
There you go.
One of his first interviews after his 90-day termination, I guess, from WWE. I don't know if I could say that, but that's what it is.
I think he said it, that he was terminated.
Yeah.
Because I know Pat Buck was too. He said we weren't furloughed, we were terminated. So.
Yeah, I know a lot of those producers, and I feel bad for the ones who are unemployed. Trust me, I'm in the real estate business. I know it's tough, but the ones who are furloughed are even kind of in more of a question mark state. So I hope, this whole thing is crazy. The whole virus and all that, and baseball finally came back, and now we might have a 6-game baseball season. It's who knows what that means for football. So. It's crazy times we live in, but at least we still have wrestling with no fans.
Yeah, that's very true. How's that been for you as a realtor? Because I know you work in the Tampa area, and Florida's Florida. So
it's starting to come back around a little bit, but see, I mostly deal with both buyers and sellers, but mostly buyers. Because the leads that you got to pay for leads unless you've been around the business for 30 years and you could afford to do mass mailing and stuff like that. So you pay for leads and you figure about 10% are going to respond and about 2% to 3% are going to use you, which if you do the math, it actually pays for itself pretty quick if you're good at it. So I usually pay for buyer leads because it's just an easier sell to people. You say, the seller pays your commission. So I'm working for you for free. Who's going to turn that down? So I found, with only 5+ years in, it's an easier sell. The problem is now that it's a seller's market big time. There's not near enough inventory for the amount of people who want to buy. So a property goes on the market on a Monday morning, and by Tuesday morning or Monday night, they have 6 offers and had 25 showings. And they're off, and then you start a bidding war with offers that are higher than the asking price. So I've sort of tried to change into trying to be more of looking for more sellers, but it's kind of a hard transition to make, to be honest with you, not to bore people about real estate on a wrestling podcast, but it's not an easy transition. So let's just say it worked out well that I've been working with Impact Wrestling, so it all seemed to work out well, knock on wood. But I'm still working hard, and it'll get back. But it just seems like every time we take 2 steps forward, we take a step back, or 1 step forward, we take 2 steps back, and it's just very frustrating.
So as you mentioned, you are doing some work within Impact Wrestling, and you've worked with the company before, but it was TNA Wrestling before. And now it's Impact Wrestling. It's a completely different management group, different ownership. The role that you're in, do you notice a lot of major differences as far as how you would get ready for a show, or just from a production standpoint between back then and coming back a couple years ago?
Well, the whole thing without any fans is surreal. So, my whole career, my job was to entertain the fans for the most part. And, it's a pretty easy job when there's no fans there. But I've been doing other stuff behind the scenes to help them out, and producing some digital content and doing these interviews they call Around the Ring that air on on their Explosion show exclusively. So they're extended form interviews. So I've been doing those as well. But but yeah, I mean, I did work for Impact for about 6 months when they first bought the company, when Jeff Jarrett was running it. Um, yeah, I mean, I never expected to be doing that. I never expected, especially now in these times. But I'm honored and humbled that that Scott D'Amore and Don Callis believe in me, and that they decided to go in a direction that included me. And I'll be on this ride for as long as they'll have me. And hopefully that's a long time. I'm really excited about the product. The locker room is, people say that and it sounds trite and it sounds like everybody talks about the locker room. I can't talk about any other locker rooms, but the locker room in Impact Wrestling really is something special. A lot of young talent, guys and girls, just working hard. I don't think anybody's getting rich for the most part, but everybody's making a living and just really trying to work as hard as we can to put a decent product out there and build, because we know that this thing is not going to change overnight. It's not going to change over a year. It may now, it may improve. It's improving now, but it took 2.5 to 3 years of patience by D'Amore and Callis and Ed Nordholm to get to where they are right now. So it's an exciting time, and we're excited about the TVs that we taped, and excited about going back and doing more and Bound for Glory, and hopefully, look, nobody's saying that we're going to be that this is going to be a Tuesday Night Wars, or this is going to be, I don't know about nobody. I haven't heard anybody say that this is, we're going to beat WWE, we're going to beat AEW. We're just looking to make our own little lane and to entertain the fans and show that what we're doing is kind of cool. And if we could do that, the rest works out. How, whether you're beating, whether you're tying, it's all about just being successful. And you can only be successful. You can't control what the competition does, what they have to spend, the connections that they have, the networks that they're in bed with. So you can't control any of that. All you can do is do the best things, work hard, and hope that that people like what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think two very important things to keep in mind are not only getting a chance to see the plans through from Scott and Don's perspective, but not bouncing around so much is going to help too. Like, you have a great roster. They've always been talented. It's been better last year and this year compared to 5 years ago. But talent was never the problem. It was always the fear that they're not going to be on TV, nobody's going to see them, and more to your point now, they're doing empty arena shows, and they're some of the best ones. You don't have to worry about spoilers as much.
Isn't that cool? I don't know that hardly any got out, and I've been doing this now since I think March, or the middle of March. We've done 3 tapings. We've done 7, 14, 6. So 20 episodes of television and a pay-per-view. Well, that was live, so obviously the spoilers for that got out, but not before the pay-per-view. And I haven't seen very much get out. That's interesting, don't you think? I have noticed that, by the way.
I think it's making wrestling fun again, because I will be the first person to admit at the beginning of this whole thing, it was kind of like, okay, and obviously I don't want wrestling to go away, but I was like, you know what, if there's less wrestling, maybe it'll be like a reset for somebody. And I started to feel that when I didn't know everything in advance. So I'm watching shows for the first time with like fresh eyes. Like, I get the screeners for Impact and I'll watch them Tuesday afternoons. And then I'll be like, you know what, I really like, even though I'm watching it, I'll be like, you know what, I really like that, or I missed something the first time around. And I find myself still watching Tuesday nights too, or I'll just watch with everybody on Tuesday nights for the first time. Like, I saw the Wrestler House. I think that's brilliant. I think they're getting a chance to be more creative with some of the stuff that they're doing with the World Championship, with Moose. I mean, you get to be involved with that too. Like, they're bringing back the past, but it's in a creative way. So I think, honestly, it's a really bad situation as far as like COVID, but from a production standpoint, it's been beneficial because you're not getting all these people knowing the results beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, there's other empty arena promotions that the results get out because people within the locker room. But it's just an example of the locker room really being all in, that nobody wants to be out there and be, oh yeah, I'm the one who's going to spoil this and I'm the one who's going to spoil that. Hell, I knew who was debuting for the most part, who was debuting at Slammiversary for 4.5 weeks. I wouldn't even tell my adult son, and who's a huge fan. So A, you don't want to jinx it, and B, because I don't deal with contracts. So when I hear this, I don't know if this is a verbal agreement, if this is a contract. So I didn't want to mess with fate, but no, like what you said, it's fun again, man. There's something cool, I guess, about knowing stuff, because hey, I'll be the first one to admit that and I still do a little bit, but I used to read the Wrestling Observer religiously, and you'd find these things out, that this guy used to be this guy in this territory, and now he's this guy under a mask, and you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Who would have ever known that? And that is cool. But then it gets to a point where, like, if nothing's surprising and everything, everything, then why are you watching? I watch a baseball game because I don't know the ending. I watch a drama because I don't know what the ending is. And if I know what the ending is, why do I want to watch it?
Is there anything you're looking forward to? Not to spoil
I'm just
anything, but...
I'm looking forward to the future, but I'm looking forward to the next set of tapings for sure, just as a fan, to see where things go, and how we get to Bound for Glory and what it looks like in October. But I will tell you, you talk about not knowing spoilers. Obviously, I'm at the taping, so I know what happens at the taping. I was not at the Wrestle House tapings, so I am really psyched to see how that all came and what's going to happen and how they're going to do things. And I don't know if it's going to be like an elimination type thing. I have no clue. Honestly, I have no clue what it was. All I knew is the talent that was there, and I love the open that they did. It was like a Threes Company open, and I'm excited for it. Look. Those kind of things, look, if in all fairness, if Vince Russo would have come up with that, people would have crapped on it. So, I mean, it needs to be entertaining without being condescending, and I hope it is, and I think it is, because I really think that we got a great group of talent and a great group of producers and writers. So I think it'll be fun, and if it's not, I'll be the first one to say, hey, it's not everybody's cup of tea. Nobody's expected to like everything, but I'm looking forward to that, and I really think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to what Gallows and Anderson and the Motor City Machine Guns and EC3 especially. I love that gimmick with, the whole politics and love and all this, and controls you, and it's such the narrative for these times. And I've always loved him as a performer and as a talker, and super excited to see where this goes. Eric Young is great. Looking forward to see how we could fit Heath and Brian Myers in the mix, two talented guys who languished too long, not really doing anything but house shows up north. So, and more potential surprises, so I'm psyched. I'm really psyched for it. I'm not just saying that. I'm being totally honest. I think that people that hear me on podcasts or my podcast could tell I'm excited, genuine excitement, as opposed to feigned excitement. And we'll see what happens. We're in unknown times now. I was so excited baseball came back. I'm a huge Tampa Bay Rays fan, and now it may be over in 6 games, 12 games. So you can never take anything for granted at this point. So I just take every day and every opportunity and every a chance I get to go and to be a part of the business and just appreciate it. And I know that sounds. It's just the truth. I mean, I'm 54 years old. I've gotten a chance to be back in the business that I absolutely love, and in several different ways, and possibly more ways to come. Just take every day and enjoy it, man. You get to be this age. You're in a pandemic. You're happy you wake up every morning, and happy every time I get to Nashville and I'm still healthy, knock on wood, and just. I like I said, I hate to sound like a cheerleader, but that's just that's my mindset at this point. It has to be.
Yeah, but it comes off as being genuine, and you have to appreciate, like, you're in the business for the right reasons. You still love it. You don't
loved it. Always loved it. Always loved it. Loved it since I was 10 years old, and I just told you how old I am, so that's 44 years. Always loved the business. Still love the business. It's a different business. I'm not going to be one of these old school guys that's, it was better. Were things better in the 70s and 80s? Yeah, but there's a lot of things in the 70s and 80s that you couldn't do right now, and fairly so, because you have to get with the times. There's production stuff now that you couldn't do back then, and so yeah. But I've been a fan. I was lucky enough to live my dream, which very few people could say that. And to be able to still be around it all these years later is kind of mind blowing, to be honest with you.
So I want to jump back a little bit, because a lot of people who maybe aren't familiar with you, maybe for the first time, are finding out that you worked with WCW, and you were at every single Nitro and Thunder taping. So
The only one,
yourself
baby.
have that. Not only you can hang your hat on that, but you have that much experience. So not only you coming into the business learning from all these people, but people can learn from you now, because you have all this experience. Like, do you kind of have a role like that nowadays, where you help out with production elements, like just?
Well, the one cool thing about Impact Wrestling, and I talked about it this week with Doc on my podcast too, not to get overly promote my podcast because that's not what I'm here for. But one of the other cool things about Impact is a lot of promotions don't want feedback. I'll tell you a funny story. The first set of tapings that I worked, they send out, after creative's done with the formats, they send the formats out to the producers and the production people, and not the talent obviously, but everybody, and they Scott included me on that, and he put up a thing that said, please, if you have any input on the shows, please get it to us by tomorrow. I think it was on a Wednesday, by tomorrow at 12 noon. So next day at 12:30, I get a call from Scott D'Amore. He's pissed off, and he's like, "What do you think? You're too good to give feedback?" And I said, "You were talking to me? I thought you were just being polite by CCing me on him. I didn't think you wanted my feedback." He's like, "We want everybody's feedback. There's no wrong questions. There's no wrong input. There's been a few things that I've brought up that that people have agreed with, and I'm feeling my way around it. I don't want to walk in there and act like I know everything, because I certainly don't. But yeah, everybody has a say in Impact Wrestling, and at the end of the day, we know the decision makers make the decision, and that's why they're there. But it's cool to be able to have your say, and people listen to it and don't, like, blow it off like, "Oh yeah, whatever, you're just to this or you're just to that." And that's all the boys and the talent and the girls and the producers and everybody. When I say producers, I know most people think agents. I mean agents, but also the production people, as far as the say into how their stuff is going to go. So it's actually really fun. I just wish we could do it in front of fans, and someday we will.
Yeah, I think we'll get back there eventually, and it's just taking it taping by taping in this case, or depending on what Nashville looks like compared to other states. Like, seems like travel isn't too much of an issue. A lot of people are driving to the tapings. It's really the extracurricular stuff, especially in other companies, because that's, you're not hearing anything about Impact testing positive. Seems like everybody's taking the right precautions. I talked to Gallows last week, and he said he was even doing testing on his property, so that's good to see that.
Yeah, I was shocked.
He's taken that responsibility to have these people at his home, and he's investing in it the right way. So it's good that those precautions are being taken.
Yeah, and I can't speak for the talent, but I could tell you that there's nobody on the creative or production side that I've seen that goes out at night after the tapings. We go back to the hotel. We might have a drink if the bar is open, and we go to bed and go to the Skyway Studios, and then go back to the hotel, and it's just that. This is not a party atmosphere now. This is a keep your eye on the prize and stay healthy and be responsible, and that message is being sent all the way from the top, and I know is being followed all the way at the top, which isn't always the case.
At the top of our call, you described Talk N Shop A-Mania as Southpaw Regional Wrestling on acid. It's a few days away. There's a lot of hype, a lot of expectations, and we know how the Good Brothers can be, the characters that they bring. What are you most looking forward to? Is there a specific match you're looking forward to? Is there something that you really hope fans pick up on when they're watching it on Saturday night?
Overall, the whole thing, and I don't mean to just say that and be rah rah, but overall, I'm really looking forward to the whole thing because remember, I saw a lot of stuff, and I saw a lot of stuff get filmed as far as pre-tapes and post-tapes and this, and I don't know what's going to be in it. So, I've seen a lot of stuff, but what they include and I've taped a lot of stuff that I don't know what they're going to include and not include. They had me do a ton of wild lines on my own, coming up with stuff on my own. I don't know what they're going to include and what they're not going to include. I saw the Sturgis one was in the preview, so that was funny. But there's stuff that's even more off the wall that I did in my announcements that you wouldn't expect from a ring announcer. And so we'll see what they use. And there's in the Boner Yard match is I'm really interested to see how that came off. I watched it live, obviously. But I didn't get to see how it came off on TV. And there's some cameos in there that I just think are hilarious. There's let's just put it this way. There's one merch table cameo that I popped for huge. It probably is not going to be for everybody. I've always loved stuff like that. I loved Southpaw Championship Wrestling. I loved the when Impact did the spoof on Impact Provincial Championship Wrestling during the holidays last time, and that's the one episode of Impact, even when I wasn't working there, that I always had on my DVR, and I'll never erase because I think it's brilliant. And I was always a fan of Airplane and all those different movies that spoofed everything. So if you're into the spoofing stuff and you're into crazy antics and people shooting, I thought it was funny that. Everybody was bitching. A lot of fans were bitching about, and I hope I could say that on the show. Well, a lot of fans were bitching about, the last WWE pay-per-view and some of the matches that they had there, Eye for an Eye and a match in a swamp. I don't know. I didn't get to see it. But and then the next day, Carl Anderson wrote out on Twitter, "You think WWE pay-per-view is bad? Wait till you see Talk N Shop A-Mania." And I saw that, and I went up to him because we were taping. During the times when we were in Nashville taping, I said, "That's an interesting way to promote a show. We're worse than the crap you saw last night, and that's what we're going to promote." So it's just that sense of humor, man. If you have that sense of humor, if you like Southpaw, if you like the Impact stuff, if you like spoofs, if you like to laugh, if you don't take it seriously, if you take it serious, anybody who takes it seriously is probably going to hate it. Jim Cornette, I'm sure, is going to hate it if he even watches it. I love Jim. God bless you, Jim. But I respect his opinion, but I don't agree with it. And but I'm sure people like that in that mindset are going to hate it. And I understand it's not the same as what I grew up watching and what Jim Cornette grew up doing, and you could either embrace the times or you could fight them. And Jim fights them, and God bless him, and that's his right. And I'm not saying he shouldn't, and I'm not saying that some of the things he says don't have some merit. But what I'm saying is, he fights it, and I've found myself embracing it for the most part, more and more. Especially, who's helped is I have two sons, 23 and 25. They're both wrestling fans, and one just got into it, the younger one, and my oldest one's been into it for years. And some of the things that I roll my eyes at, they love, and some of the stuff that Cornette talks crap about, they love, and I would be like, I just don't get it. It doesn't make and they try to explain it to me. This is 2020. Not everything has to make sense. If people are reacting and they think it's funny or they get a kick out of it, it doesn't have to make sense. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't everything supposed to make sense and storyline? And so you find yourself going back in old school. But the kids have really helped me to embrace what's going on now and run with it and enjoy it instead of thinking back to how it was Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express. Do I wish those times would be here and we could be in those type of times? Sure, there's a part of me that wishes that, but it's not. And like I said, you can either fight it or you can embrace it. So I've chose the latter.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach, and I wouldn't say I'm completely a traditionalist when it comes to wrestling, but I also appreciate and respect how this event and a lot of my favorite comedy stuff leans into it instead of just, throwing everything aside. Like you said, there's probably going to be countless comments on Twitter where they're like, oh, Jim Cornette at Jim Cornette, did you see this? So
oh, it'll blow his mind. If you
Yeah.
think Orange Cassidy and the Young Bucks blows his mind, this is going to blow his mind. You know what though? It's entertaining. I mean, not everybody was in on the Andy Kaufman stuff back in the day. Not to show my age, but I've already stooged myself up. But a lot of people didn't think the Andy Kaufman stuff was good, and a lot of people thought it gave away the business. Why are you wrestling women? Why are doing all this stuff? But it's now iconic, and I was a huge fan back in the day of the Andy Kaufman stuff. Huge Andy Kaufman fan. Was supposed to actually see him in concert. And they canceled the tour because he had cancer and nobody knew, and then soon later passed away. But I actually had tickets to a concert at an old place called the Sunrise Musical Theater that hadn't been around in 20 years. But yeah, so Andy Kaufman, people rolled their eyes, and now they're making movies about him, and so we'll see. I sort of love that kind of laughing at yourself kind of humor.
Yeah, isn't today like the anniversary of the Letterman appearance? Like after I watched the video today, so I thought it was the most shocking thing was he was dropping F-bombs and cursing out Jerry Lawler on regular TV. How many years is that? 27 years? 37.
Yeah. I'll never 37. I'll never forget it. I was watching it live. I was a big Letterman fan back in the day, and Letterman back in the day was sort of a spoof kind of laugh at yourself kind of guy. And yeah, I'll never forget. And I haven't seen the clip in probably a couple of years, but I'll never forget. Like you said, Andy started calling them all these curse words that were bleeped out. I think that there's been video of them not bleeped out that's come up in time, but And then he threw a cup of coffee on him, and I remember Letterman going something to the effect of, you might be able to say those words, but the one thing you can't do is throw coffee. That's going over the line. And so, yeah, and I, who knew? I didn't know. Back when I was watching it as a fan, I would have never a million years known it was a work. And who knows? I think Letterman was in on it, but he might not have been. And Andy just loved to put himself in positions, even if he got booed or he got in trouble or it hurt his career. He loved to put himself in positions that got a reaction. And I love that type of humor. I love that type of approach. And God, he was taken so soon. But yeah. I was a huge fan. Like I said, I've gotten to know Jimmy Hart really well over the last 25 years. And the most fun times I've ever had with Jimmy really is him telling me Andy Kaufman stories, both, what happened in front of the camera and behind the scenes. And it's just so sad that the guy got taken at such a young age.
I usually end with this. I'll get you out on this. I've been asking people for match recommendations. It originally started as we're not going to have wrestling when quarantine started. Let's go dig into the archives. Obviously, Impact and other companies have done a great job of putting on shows, but I want to ask you, of all of your work in WCW and TNA Impact, what's your favorite match that you've ever been a part of?
People ask me that a lot, and I have a hard time with matches. I have, I will tell you moments. I'm more of a moment guy than a matches guy. Is that okay? Can I give you moments?
Yeah.
I mean, Scott Hall walking down the stairs in Macon, Georgia. We knew he was going to be there. We didn't know what they were going to do with him. And by playing off the scheme Gene and the You Want a War, we're going to give you a war stuff, a light bulb went off in my head and I got goosebumps. The Horseman reunion in Columbia, South Carolina. I was driving with Arn Anderson at the time. He must have practiced that speech with me all the way down to the knocking on his head saying, oh, I must have Alzheimer's, ladies and gentlemen, Ric Flair. He went over that with me probably 100 times, if not 150, and I still pop like a mark. And I would say that Hulk Hogan turning heel. It was pretty well known in the back that that's what they wanted him to do, but nobody knew until he came out that he was going to do it because there was powers that were in his ear saying, "Don't do this." You've been this all-American babyface your whole life. Don't do this. And there was a lot of money on the line for him, and good for him. He made the right decision. As far as Impact Wrestling goes. I absolutely love, and watch on probably a monthly basis after I have a few vodkas on the weekend, the Jay Lethal Ric Flair encounter, which is must watch viewing. Probably my favorite thing ever in TNA, and that covers a lot. And so, yeah, that would be my go-to stuff. As far as matches, the best match I ever saw was War Games in Jacksonville. I believe it was '92. It was the Dangerous Alliance against Sting Stallion, and best match I ever saw. If that's available online or on WWE Network, I would encourage you. I was actually ringing the bell that night in the stands, and I was so into the match I forgot to ring the bell at the finish. You'll notice there's a little delay, and Keith Mitchell in my ears going, "Ring the effing bell!" And I got so into the match. So I would say that's the best match I ever saw, but that covers a lot. I've seen some great matches. The Goldberg win over Hogan at the Georgia Dome was just electric. When Diamond Dallas Page turned on Hall and Nash, who he'd been courting, and gave him the diamond cutter in the Superdome in Louisiana. That was fantastic. I love the angle where Don West turned heel on Mike Tenay, because they had so much fun with that. And I know those guys, and I used to hang out with those guys before the shows, during the shows, after the shows. We became really good friends, and so that was fun for me. So that would be a few things that would be that are on my must-watch list, and I keep watching over and over again because I still pop when I see them.
Dave Penzer, we can see you on Impact Wrestling or hear you on Impact Wrestling, Access TV and Twitch each week. Talk N Shop A-Mania this Saturday, August 2nd on pay-per-view and Fight. And your podcast weekly is Sitting Ringside with David Penzer. You can go to radioinfluence.com and find it. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, sure. We're on all the platforms. Any platform that you have that has podcasts, we're on there. So if you listen and you like it, subscribe, and if you can, leave a review. And I'm on Twitter at David Penzer. So I like to talk wrestling. I don't talk politics. We don't argue. We don't fight. We talk fun stuff. We talk baseball and fantasy football if we have it. And I hope we have fantasy football. And we talk wrestling. So join me on Twitter if you haven't.